Hello and welcome to the Hockey Hub podcast. Glad you could join us for episode 9. So I guess we got to call it the Chief episode, Brick. The Johnny Busick episode.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
All right, there you go. There you go. Adam Pellerin and Andy Brickley here with you as the Bruins get set to take on the Maple Leafs on Tuesday night in Toronto, their second matchup against the Leafs this season. We'll dive into that. We'll look back on the last couple of games for the Bruins as well. Of course, that has evolved into a big storyline. Another storyline that's sort of developing is David Pastrnak not seeing any ice time in the third period of that game against the Kraken. So we'll talk about that as well. And also, we'll have some special guests on to talk about a pretty cool Bruins Alumni game coming up on December 7th featuring some pretty big names. So a full slate ahead here on the Hockey Hub podcast. Brick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Feeling good about the Bruins and a 4-point weekend.
Yeah, 4-point weekend for the Bruins, and things did not look good. The last time we spoke, Brick, was following the 2-0 loss to the Flyers, and the Bruins were heading out on the road to take on Carolina Hurricanes. You knew that was going to be a tough test, but what ended up happening was the Bruins got smoked. They allowed a season-high 8 goals, and it was rock bottom, really, for the Bruins, I would say, early part of the season here. But the response this weekend, the shutout win over the Flyers, and then to follow that up with a shutout win over the Kraken, Brick. What stood out to you about the Bruins' response over the weekend?
Well, let's start with the obvious, Adam. I love the 4 points. I love the fact that they didn't give up any goals, back-to-back shutouts. Love the goaltending. Love the improved penalty killing. They look pretty bad against teams like Dallas and against Carolina. They play fast. They're talented, and the PK was exposed, so they had to make some adjustments and make some better efforts in that area. So that helped pitch a couple of shutouts. I like guys that drew into the lineup and the way that they played. Guys like, Brazeau had been a healthy scratch at one point during the year, and once he got 4 in his last 6 games or something like that. I love the way Wotherspoon stepped in and played. I thought he deserved to stay in the lineup after he played in Philly to come home against Seattle, keep him in there, even though you take Lowry out and you put Peak back in. So I was impressed by that. I think the overall improved level of play and the simplicity in which they played with across the board when I'm talking about the entire lineup. Make that high percentage play, make the smart play. I thought they played a lot smarter the last 2 games. Now, they weren't instant classics. Let's be honest. There was still plenty of flaws in their game. I didn't like the third period in terms of too conservative in both games, to be honest with you. I believe, and I think the coaching staff for the Bruins believes that you play for the next goal. Play for the next goal. Don't sit back and protect the 2-goal lead. I think that can hurt. I mean, the game against the Kraken, there was a post on the crossbar in that third period, when you're hanging on a 2-0 lead. And I was disappointed that they didn't extend leads with their power play. I think their power play can be so much better because of the talent that they can roll out there. But I want to be positive. I'm going to be positive. I like the way they played. They got themselves back to 500. They had back-to-back wins, Adam. That was something that you look at, and this is something we talked about at the top of the broadcast against Seattle, was every time that they won a game this year, it was followed up by a really bad first period the next game, and then next thing you know, you're stockpiling losses, and you have to pull yourself back into the winning column. So to have back-to-back wins really on a weekend when they needed the 4 points, I think we all should be pleased with that, but the test gets a little tougher now going into Toronto.
Yeah, no question about that. Playing a Maple Leafs team that you're able to beat on a Saturday night in Boston, which, again, you looked at that game at the time and said, okay, now they can start to build off of that. Right. They had lost the first game of that homestand to the Dallas Stars, giving up 3 power play goals, which was pretty ugly in that second period, and then able to bounce back with the win over the Maple Leafs and thinking, okay, you're going to build off that, and then you go into the game against the Flyers and you get shut out, so it didn't work out. And so the Bruins able to win back-to-back games for the second time this year, and the first time was the first 2 home games of the year against the Canadiens and the overtime win over the Kings, so it had been a while for the Bruins. So it was a good weekend, and you talked to Charlie Coyle after the game, after the win against the Kraken. He talked about being mentally prepared in order to break out of the slump.
I think just getting mentally prepared. It's one thing, you kind of talk about things you want to do, and you look at video, you go over stuff, you do stuff in practice, and that's all good. But it's about bringing that focus, mentally being there, it's tough when you're kind of not playing as good as, we're able to. And you start doubting little things, right? It's crazy how mental the game is. And just kind of getting out of funks like that, that's all it takes, creating energy. Like, I touched on it yesterday after our game. Like, we were creating our own energy before the game started, like in the locker room, talking, all that stuff. Like, you need that. A lot of times you're in a slump, you're kind of quiet, and there's only a guy or two saying something, but it takes everyone. And we kind of had that starting yesterday. We started well, and then we brought it right into tonight too. And that's what we need.
All right, so Charlie Coyle talking after the win over the Kraken. Effort, energy, execution, and execution goes hand in hand with decision making. And a lot of times, Brick, I would imagine, with your experience playing many years of professional hockey, when things aren't going well, you start to grip the stick a little bit harder. You start to feel it becomes contagious almost. Is that what we were seeing with the Bruins when they were going through those struggles leading up to the weekend?
Yeah, I'm not sure every player felt that way, Adam, but I think the top guys felt that way. I think they get into their mind that, I can do more. There's a better play to be made. Then you start forcing plays. That's why I always go back, make the high percentage play, make the simple play, and then all of a sudden you can get creative off of that. And I think that's what they started to realize. We talked about the 2 wins over the weekend. What it does for them mentally is huge. Mentally and emotionally is huge for this team. It's not so much a physical feeling when you get blown out by Carolina. It's that mental anguish that you deal with, because, we're not an 8-2 losing team. We're much better than that. And I think to get back in the win column and do it the way they did it and do it as a team, they weren't carried by 2 or 3 guys. Yeah, they got the goaltending, but I thought they were real team wins. And I think that's a huge emotional lift for this team. And it should help them in that how we think the game, how we prepare for the game, the way we deal with the game when things aren't going our way, and how we find our A game and keep our A game consistently. A lot of that stuff is mental, especially early in the season when you're trying to build your team game and your expectations are a lot higher than the results. So I think what Charlie's talking about, the mental aspect of the game, is huge. It's huge. Now that you have the 2 wins back-to-back and you're going into Toronto, and it's a divisional game, a team that you have really probably a stronger rivalry with now than you do Montreal, right?
No question.
Yeah. So I think they're in a good spot. I think those 2 wins really helps where they're at as far as their approach and what they believe in themselves. And there are still a couple of hurdles when you're talking about key players that need to find their game. And you know what I'm talking about. 88 doesn't get a shift in the third period against the Kraken, and that needs a good response from the player.
And we're going to get into David Pastrnak in just a moment. But in terms of their overall team game, Brick, I think what stood out over the couple of games as well was the fact that they got off to such great starts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
They were able to win the first period in both of those games. It's something that they had only done one other time this season before the weekend, and it was the game against the Colorado Avalanche, and no surprise, they played very well that game, 5-on-5. I know they allowed those power play goals, but again, you're talking about a pretty good power play unit with the Colorado Avalanche, but still, they were able to win the period, and Jim Montgomery had said after the game in the general media availability that he didn't like the second period, and Philly didn't like the second period against the Kraken either, but because they got off to such a good start, they were able to build a little bit of cushion, right? A little margin for error.
Yeah, and I would add to that I think a little bit more going back to what you believe are good connections, good lineups is what I'm trying to get at. Like, put that fourth line back together. They'll start the hockey game. You want to start the hockey game with a pretty good start, a first good shift, you can roll that fourth line out there the way they've played throughout the first 12, 13 games, or whatever it's been. And I like putting that line together. And I like having Lindholm with Pastrnak. I think that's really the only center based on this roster construction that's going to work. And I think with Monty going back to that combination and then trying to fill in around that, all right, well, who's going to be the left wing on that line? And then if it's going to be Marchand, then what are we going to do with Zacha? Where's he going to be? Should he play center? No, keep him on the wing. Put it on Charlie Coyle to be that second-line center. He was a great second-line center last year. We all think he's an unbelievable third-line center on a Stanley Cup championship team. There's no doubt about that. But with this roster and with Poitras being so young and Kastelik really being a fourth-line guy as a center on that line, I mean, that's the spot for Charlie Coyle. And he's lived up to that level of play the last 2 games. He's been great the last 2 games. He had a great weekend the way he was playing. So I think with Monty going back to that, a little bit more consistency in the lineup, put the blender away for a while, give him 2, 3, 4, 5 games, and I think that will also lend itself to quality starts.
Yeah, Charlie Coyle was a beast over the last couple of games, and playing to his identity. That's what he's known for, right? The strength and and just the way he was able to hold on to pucks.
Explosive. He gets separation. Not only does he fight guys off, he gets that separation. And I talk about that with Potter all the time, man. I'm like, watch Charlie Coyle. I'm not saying you're built like him, and you have those attributes, but what you do is you learn from a player like that. Once he gets body position, now it's about getting separation. You got to have that first explosive stride, and he's got that. I'd like to see Potter add that to his game as he continues to grow.
I do want to talk about the other Charlie on the roster too for a second, because Charlie McAvoy, again, one of those big names that you're looking to sort of step up, and I think this was a really good weekend for him. I thought the game against the Kraken, really stood out, and one of the big factors, early on in that game was shots coming from the point too, right? And McAvoy had 7 shots on goal. He had 9 shot attempts, 7 of them on net, Brick.
He was decisive. And we hadn't seen that from him. There was a drag in his decision-making prior to this weekend where he was unsure of what he wanted to do. And the minute you hesitate in this league, players disappear. It's just too fast. The players are too good. There's too good defending in terms of structures. So you have to be decisive. And he's a guy that wants the puck. He wants the puck on his stick every big situation, and I love that about him. And he's capable to control a game when he's decisive the way he was, particularly against Seattle. And that's what you're looking for from him. Even some of the great players in this game, they do have doubt that creeps into their game when it's not going that well. And then when you try to overdo, like we talked earlier, because you're one of the leaders and you're one of the top guys, and your game goes a little sideways, now that doubt even creeps into the best of players. And I think that's what Charlie was dealing with. If he's decisive, if he's making that right decision, and it's happening like that, instantaneous and naturally, he's a dominant player, and that's what he looked like, and you hope that's the beginning of what we're going to see now for a long stretch.
Yeah, Charlie McAvoy, both Charlies stepping up for the Bruins over the weekend. The other storyline that developed in that game against the Kraken was David Pastrnak, and you see him on the bench there in the third period and saying, okay, he's there, so you're assuming he's not hurt, right? Because if a player's hurt, you usually don't see him on the bench. Didn't play in the third period. And Jim Montgomery had told you, because you asked him the question in your interview post-game, that it was a coach's decision. What kind of message do you think the coach was trying to send there, Brick?
Well, I think it's similar to the message he's tried to send to Brad Marchand earlier in the year. People wanted to make a big deal out of that, and that was a coach calling out one of his top players for a really bad play, bad mistake, and hold him accountable. And I thought the way Marchand handled it was perfect. It's a non-story, but it's an interesting dynamic between coach, player, and coach and team. And a message was sent, and you hope to get the necessary response. And I think to some degree they got it from Brad Marchand. His game has been elevated, and I think that has to do with his health as well. And not really having a great training camp and with the surgeries on the off season. We've talked about all that. He's starting to look more like the Brad Marchand that we're used to, and that's good news. Now you're talking about how does David Pastrnak respond. I think this is something that Jim Montgomery wanted to do at different times already, earlier this year, because of the turnovers and the bad decisions and the battle factor wasn't where it needed to be for David Pastrnak as one of the leaders on this team, as one of the guys that can win you a game just because of his tremendous offensive skill. And if you're not getting that, how do you get your message across? Well, they had the lead. It was a perfect time, I think, in Monty's mind that I can sit this guy in the third period to get my message that nobody is above being sat out if you're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing and you're letting your teammates down. And I can control your ice time. That's one of the strengths you have as a head coach. And I think he thought he needed to do it against the Kraken in the third period with the luxury of a 2-goal lead. Every time there was an offensive zone faceoff after an icing or something, you kept looking at the bench waiting for 88 to throw a leg over, but it never happened. And he was on the bench, as he said. If it was a playoff game and he was sitting there, he could have been hurt. The players want to still stay out there and be part of it, whether they can play or not. We've seen that. But no, you knew pretty much, and we asked Jim. It was the right thing to ask, but coach's decision there was it confirmed what we thought, and it's all about the response. What are you going to get, especially going in Toronto, a team that I don't know if he owns them, but he certainly scores big goals against the Maple Leafs, and I'm looking for that Marchand kind of response from one of the leaders of this team, and it can solidify, his want to be and his expectation to be a leader. This isn't Chara and Bergeron's room anymore, right? The dynamic has changed to some degree, and David Pastrnak's part of that leadership group. And we need, as Bruins fans and observers and analysts, we need to see the proper response from the player.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see if the Bruins went on the power play in that third period, though, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I still think he would have sat.
Yeah.
Based on what we're hearing post.
Yeah, you can't just take him off the bench, right, and put him in the power play, right? Yeah.
Now the other question, the what ifs.
Yeah.
If it was a tie game, maybe you see him.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
Well, you had mentioned the score, right?
Right.
You had the luxury of being up 2-0. So, interesting storyline. You're watching the Hockey Hub podcast here on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, or maybe you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes. And for more on the Bruins and biggest trending news in the sports world, check out Boston Has Entered the Chat, hosted by George Bellecci and Travis Thomas. That's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. So we're talking about the David Pastrnak situation in the third period of the game against the Kraken. Jim Montgomery deciding not to play him. No ice time for Pastrnak, and that's obviously it was a point of interest to the media after the game, and Charlie Coyle and Charlie McAvoy were asked about it.
No worries. I mean, do we want our best players playing? Yeah. I don't know the full extent of that. I don't know what was going on, and sometimes you're so in tune to the game, you're just kind of ready to see who you're going with the next, and there's really no time to kind of think. Whatever the coach kind of says and whatever his decisions are is, you just got to go play, and it's a hockey game to be played. But Pasta there, he wasn't silent. He was bringing energy. He was talking. He was into it. That's a sign of a good teammate right there, and that's why he wears a letter. That's why he's one of our captains, our leaders, and it's lots to be said for that.
And then when you see Pastrnak still be upbeat even though he's being benched, how can that rub off on the rest of the guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge because he's one of the biggest players. He's one of the most important players on our team, and he's an assistant captain here, and he's so vital to this group. And like I said, the only thing that matters is us getting 2 points. And, he handles that with a smile on his face. And I know the way that he prepares and the success that he wants to have and how much of a competitor he is. So, I mean, I'll just go back to what I said. Like, Toronto, we can shift the focus, and the schedule is like this, and this. So there's no time to wallow around. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in Toronto, and I think he's going to have a great game.
All right, Charlie Coyle and Charlie McAvoy talking about the coach's decision to not play David Pastrnak at the third period. And break, basically, what Charlie Coyle said is, Pastrnak was on the bench. He was upbeat. He was supporting his teammates, and that's what he expects out of him because he's one of the leaders of the group. And Charlie McAvoy was echoing those comments, saying that he's one of the most important players on the team, obviously, and there's no time to wallow, right? They got a game against the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, and he knows that Pastrnak will be up to the challenge. He'll be ready to go and ready to turn the page, and that's what you have to do.
Yeah, and if you're sitting on the bench and, I was trying to picture myself, say Milbury was coaching and it's the third period, we're up by 2, and what do you mean, Ray isn't playing? Like, Ray's sitting on the bench. What are we doing here? Well, Cam's not going out. We got a power play. Cam's not going out.
Yeah, right. I know.
As a player, I'm trying to picture, Charlie Coyle and Charlie McAvoy saying, all right, we got a 2-0 lead. Nobody's scoring when I'm out. Nobody's scoring against when I'm out there if David Pastrnak's not playing. If we're not getting our third goal tonight because one of our top guys is sitting because he's not playing up to his capabilities, well, I'm certainly not getting scored on. And I think that was part of the feeling that that they had every time they threw their legs over the boards to go out for a shift, that they weren't going to be the ones to allow Seattle back in the hockey game. So maybe it had that impact as well.
So the Bruins, as Charlie McAvoy was talking about, turning the page to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Their second matchup with the Leafs, obviously the overtime win over the Leafs to kick off the season series for the Bruins. And now you're taking on a Leafs team that's coming off an overtime loss to Minnesota. It's an interesting Leafs team, right? Because they have different leadership on the bench. Craig Berube, pretty straightforward in his identity, right? Pretty simple, defensive-minded, toughness, of course, all those years in St. Louis. And some of the early numbers reflect that, Brick. They're ninth in goals allowed. The penalty kills, top 10 as well. But what's unusual with this Maple Leafs team is that the offense isn't quite there yet. They're 18th in goals for, and their power play is clicking at 10%, which is crazy to think about with all that talent that they have on the roster. Your thoughts about the Maple Leafs through the first part of the season?
Yeah, they have a new guy, as you mentioned, behind the bench, so a new way of doing things. And that transition doesn't happen overnight. And their goaltending and their team defense are still issues. They've always been issues. They continue to be issues, and that's what's trying to be addressed by the new regime. And as far as their top six, they're still sorting that out. If we're going to play Matthews and Marner together, who's going to play with Nylander? Is Tavares a top 2 center on this team? Is Max Pacioretty a top 6 guy? What are we going to do with they're trying to sort out their top 6, and once they figure out and settle on and get results from, that offensive number will change for that team, and that power play will change. I think Morgan Riley is probably the key to their power play, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
With all that talent they have up front, you still need a guy on the back end. You still need to get your zone entries. You still got to have a guy at the top of the umbrella, depending on how you want to organize your man advantage. And he hasn't had a great start to the season. So I think once they sort all that out, and once they slide into more of a consistent lineup and know who's playing with who, I think you'll see their talent take over. But again, it's the goaltending and team defense that was the concern of Craig Berube and what he has addressed through the first month and a half of the season, and they're still sorting that out. So it's good to get some games in against them early while they're sorting it out, because you're doing the same thing. The Bruins are in the same boat to some degree. So should be a good test, should be a good game, but I fully expect their top offensive guys to have their A game, and that's what you have to prepare for.
Yeah, no question about it. And we talked about it at the time when the Bruins coming off the road trip and then the loss to the Stars. The Maple Leafs, were coming off of a tough stretch as well.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, Adam, again, a good start. Because the Bruins are kind of in the Leafs' head a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, yeah.
Yeah.
They've won 8 straight regular season games, beat them in the playoffs every single year.
Just like in the game against Seattle, you have that first good 20 minutes and say, this is the way we're going to establish our game, and this is the way we're going to play for 60. You're going to have to beat us at the way we play. And if they can do that, I think there'll be some doubt in the blue and white.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that, Brick, is that this is the Bruins that are coming to town. They're getting up for it, just like the Bruins got up for the Maple Leafs, right? That can help you if you're in a bad way. The opponent on the other side, can certainly provide some kind of jolt. Speaking of providing a jolt, Jack Edwards night on Sunday.
Well done.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be here all week. It was great to see Jack, celebrating Jack, having his own night at the Garden. And obviously, Brick, you were a big part of the evening festivities after, so many years together in the broadcast booth. Take us through that moment where he's being walked into, and you can see the video right here. Charlie Jacobs and Sean McGrail walking him into the broadcast booth, and just that moment. What was going through your mind? What was your reaction? What were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Jack loves seeing everybody. He loves seeing everybody that's involved with NESN broadcast and Bruins hockey and the Bruins organization. Just a polarizing figure, obviously, with his game calls. But as a person, he was just so appreciative and humbled by, that gesture right there from high above the ice.
Oh, that was incredible.
Special.
What a moment, too. If I could just add, just seeing that play out, I was on the set with the fellas watching it, and we all just sort of said, "Wow, what an incredible moment."
Yeah, and I know I came down to Level 5 postgame and watched you guys do the postgame show, and anytime there was a break, I think it was Barry said it first. He was like, "Brick, we watched it on TV. It looked awesome." Because we're in the moment, we're living it. We're in the room with Jack, so you don't really know what's going on TV. And he said it looked so great, and I love that look with Sean and Charlie walking him into the booth, and the booth one more time, and what they did to honor Jack for his services from that booth, and the way Judd handled everything was spectacular. And it was great to chat with him, great to visit with him, great to go down memory lane as best we could. And then, again, the Bruins and NESN, what they did for him post-game, went down to Heritage Hall and had a nice fellowship with Jack and his family. And I just think it was so well done. It was great to see him. It was a little emotional, I will admit. We were partners for a long time and good friends and always will be. And you know how much he misses the game, and he misses. I know he's in a good place. But he misses. When I retired from playing hockey, that hole in your gut hangs around for a while, and you got to figure out how to fill it because it was your life. It was part of who you were. It was what you did, and I know Jack had to deal with that, and that's a painful thing to make that transition. But he was so pleased and thrilled and humbled to be there and to be honored and to be associated and affiliated with the Bruins for eternity is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I also really loved the moment where Jack's in the booth with you two. He puts his arm on your back, and then he looks to Judd and puts his arm around him and just said that you're doing a great job. And not that Judd needed that, but I thought it was an incredible gesture from Jack because, again, that was your booth. Both of your booth for a long time, and to see that, and he called it a seamless transition, and just watching the games, Brick, it seems like it's been a seamless transition. I tell people Judd's new to NESN, but he's obviously not new to the Bruins, and we've all been a part of the same team for years.
Yeah, and they have some similarities, and number one is how prepared they are. The work that they put in. You try to explain to people, whether it's at a golf tournament or just some people you meet socially, people you see at the Garden, you just try to say, that you could prepare and you might only use a tenth of the material that you prepared to use because you never know what's going to happen in the game and you have to be ready. But the preparation involved that both Jack and Judd do and have done, I think, is just so impressive. And because, the game is so fast, Adam, as you know. I mean, you're trying to get information and call the game and tell stories all at the same time, yet things are happening at, a lightning pace out there. So it's really it's a skill to be able to call a game play-by-play. Think about this, too. The pandemic, calling games from Watertown. You're watching it on the screen, the team's in another city, and you're calling it from Watertown, and you're a play-by-play guy with the pace of the game, and all you can do is call. You don't even know what's coming into the screen. Like, how challenging is that? And to be able to pull that off is just, I don't know how they do it. It's impressive.
Jack didn't let his feelings anybody know about that either. He was real quiet about it. Didn't find out
just another day.
Yeah. Right. Oh man, yeah, it was a great night at the Garden. Great tribute to Jack, and great to see you two back together. And honestly, it's been a joy to watch you and Judd kill it in the booth as well. So looking forward to years of that to come, and looking forward to having you on the next Hockey Hub podcast next week. We're gonna have Judd on this week after the game against the Maple Leafs. We'll see how things play out.
Yeah, hopefully we're talking about a 5-game winning streak at that point.
Yeah, hopefully we are. Hopefully we are, right? Because the Bruins are back home after that for a couple, and but big one against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Looking forward to that. All right, we'll let you get ready for the game, Brick. Thanks once again for joining us here on the Hockey Hub podcast. Remember, we're available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. All right, well, Jack Edwards was in the booth with you guys during the game, but he was also on the pregame show with Billy Jaffe and Barry Peterson and myself talking about what this Jack Edwards night at the Garden meant to him. He's here. Jack Edwards joins us. I was watching you as you were watching those highlights from your career, just the tip of the iceberg. What was going through your mind?
it seems like a dream long ago, and I'm grateful and filled with thankfulness to get this opportunity to thank the Bruins organization and the colleagues who have supported me, and especially the players and fans. I've lived a fantasy life for 45 years. My wife, Lisa, homeschooled 3 kids, and she gave up part of her career to allow the kids more access to me throughout my regular schedule, and I was going to hockey games. And I'll address the elephant in the room. The doctors still don't know what's going on between my brain, which appears to be functioning normally, no matter what the fans say, and my mouth. But I'm getting used to speaking more slowly, and don't get as self-conscious as I once did on blurbering a word. I'm enjoying every day, and I'm working out 6 or 7 times a week and getting ready for ski season.
Are you waxing them up?
Oh yeah,
Huh?
and haven't missed a Bruins game all year, and I think Judd is doing a fabulous job. He's a good guy and calls a great game and a seamless transition to the booth.
Now, when I'm watching you pounding in there and we're getting the goosebumps listening to your voice, we had asked Brick if there was any time in the 19 years he was worried about you going off. I mean, normally when we go out and play, when they're playing, we tie ourselves down the sweater, right? So you're ready to go. Did they ever tie you down to the seat?
Yeah, they contemplated that. They measured me for a carabiner and attached a rope, but it wasn't necessary.
Do you get internally emotional still watching the games now?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, how about verbally? Are you sitting there yelling and
My wife, Lisa, won't sit in the same room as me, especially goaltender interference.
Wait, you still have the league hotline. You can call them still, Jack. You know that.
Right.
Colin Campbell, I'm sure, or would love it, right?
It always rolls over to voicemail. They don't answer my number.
You think they do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Is there a call or a moment that sticks out to you over your long career? I think the one I think of is Game 7, 2013. Just incredible. Is there one, maybe it's that, maybe it's another one that stands out to you more than the other?
There are 3. The Game 7 call in 2013 and the Bruins knock out Montreal in overtime of Game 7 in 2011, and Game 6, 2008 versus the Canadiens. This building is vibrating, and It literally was. And I cherish that moment because you could actually physically feel Boston becoming a hockey town again. So I lived a fantasy life for 19 years, unbelievable achievement and sacrifice by the players, marvelous coach after marvelous coach, and an ownership group that does it old school, arm's distance. You do the job that you're hired to do. And I have gone through the building and seen old friends, and to be associated with the Bruins organization is a special thing. And once you have that association, you're a Bruin for life. And I feel the love.
Well, I can say personally that I had a great time working with you over 12 years in NESN, but over the last few years when I became a part of the Bruins coverage and got to travel with you, got to know you and see you and Brick in action and see the whole team in action together, from everybody in the truck to the broadcast booth. It was really special, and I really appreciate the time I got to work with you.
And from us, thanks for the passion and the energy. Because I know when they're cutting those veins, it's black and gold out of them.
Right.
Huh?
And I hear you're now in the gravel business in Vermont.
40 tons of gravel spread in my driveway.
That's why you're in such good shape, buddy.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Great to see you.
Awesome to see you. Awesome to have you here.
Great
Congrats
to see
on
you.
your night.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great
Thanks
to see your
for-
family here too, supporting you. And I know the fans are fired up. So
Yeah.
great to see you, Jack.
Thanks for having me, and thank you to the fans who put the roof over my head.
All right, we're going to switch gears now, and joining us are some special guests looking ahead to a special game being played on December 7th at Warrior Ice Arena, the Face-Off for Heroes, the Nate Hardy Memorial Game, as the Warrior for Life All-Stars take on the Boston Bruins alumni. And joining us to talk about it, the Warrior for Life Fund president and founder, retired Navy SEAL Captain Ryan Croley, Bruins alumni president and board member of the Warrior Fund for Life, Frank Simonetti. You have a former NHLer as well who's going to be taking the ice in this alumni game, and that's Mark Mowers. Thanks to all three of you for joining us here on the Hockey Hub podcast. Looking forward to the game. I just want to get the excitement level from all three of you. Ryan, we'll start with you.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you having us on. From our standpoint, I'm showing up with a group of active duty retired SEALs that are going to come up and play the Boston Bruins in what initially was a friendly game. Where we'd come up and just everyone would get out there. But recently, Frank Simonetti and the Boston Bruins have really elevated this to a much, much more competitive game. So we'll bring the best that we can, but it's going to be tough against this lineup that they're getting against us.
Yeah, Frank, pretty good lineup you put together. I mean, you look at that roster, it's unbelievable. It's going to be a lot of excitement leading into this one.
There is a lot of excitement, Adam. It was a friendly game until the Warrior for Life Fund All-Stars beat us a couple of years ago. And they beat us quite handily. So we take no chances now. We stacked the lineup last year by adding Patrice Bergeron. It was a 2-1 game. But this year's game has turned out to be a mini reunion of the 2011 Stanley Cup team. And if you allow me to read the lineup, captained by Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara. We have Tim Thomas as coach, Mark Recchi, David Krejci, Chris Kelly, Tuukka Rask, Dennis Seidenberg, Johnny Boychuk, Sean Thornton, Gregory Campbell, Adam McQuaid, and breaking news, Andrew Ferentz from 2011 is joining the lineup as well. We wanted to hold that news for you, Adam. And joining that elite roster is Kevin Miller, who is a board member of the Warrior for Life Fund and veteran of the Boston Bruins alumni. Andrew Alberts, who is a Warrior for Life Fund ambassador and Bruins alumni. Mark Mowers, who you introduced earlier. PJ Stock making his debut with the Boston Bruins alumni. Brian Smolinski, a former Bruin and employee now of the National Hockey League. And Tim Schaller, who's good friends with all these guys. So we've got 18 power forwards and defensemen. And our goaltender will be Cleon Daskalakis. He's really the only Bruins goaltender that wants to play net anymore.
They all think they're David Pastrnak, don't they?
They're actually pretty good with the puck. I'm not going to discredit them at all here. And they'll be backed up by Keith Segui, one of the Bruins E-Bug goalies and a good friend of the alumni. So we have a great lineup.
Yeah, I've seen Razor on the ice making moves, trying to dangle out there. It's all those goalies, man. They think they're skaters. It's funny. And good luck getting PJ Stock to come out of his shell too. That's going to be really tough, I think, for that to happen.
He's shy. You're right.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, you're a part of this star-studded roster. You're also, involved with the Warrior for Life Fund as an ambassador, as Frank mentioned. What does playing in this game mean to you?
You know what? It's since I got involved with this, Warrior for Life Fund. I'm, fortunate to be a part of it. Fortunate to be, part of the Bruins alumni. To be quite honest, and putting those two together, and getting invited to play with the game and being at the game in name of Nathan Hardy, who I have history with back at the University of New Hampshire, along with his parents. It's just something that it's once they put it on for the next year, it's right on my calendar, and it's probably one of my favorite, most special days of the year. And like mentioned, it was kind of like a fun game before, and now it's become a more competitive thing. And to be quite honest, I don't even know how I'm still on the roster, other than being part of the Warrior for Life Fund. But once again, I'm grateful, I'm fortunate, and I'm thankful that I don't have to play, hopefully, with Patrice Bergeron this year, because last year I almost died because he has not slowed down one bit from when he retired. So hopefully I could be on the fourth line, just plug and grind it out and have some fun and some laughs with the guys.
Tell Bergie there's no back checking in the alumni game. Will ya? I mean, geez.
There's no telling him that. There's no I don't think he lost a face-off last year.
No surprise. It was great to see Patrice Bergeron on the ice. And you mentioned Nathan Hardy, and Ryan, I'll pose this question to you. Who was Nathan Hardy, and why is the game being played in his honor?
Great question. So Nate is the son of Steve Hardy, who was a professor up at UNH there. So he's been connected to the Boston community for a long time. Nate and I served together, not directly at the same unit, but and I wasn't with him when he was killed in action. But what we've done at Warrior for Life Fund, really since we've been doing this for about 12 years, is try to identify a veteran, somebody that we lost inside of our formation, and then have games in honor of them and bring their families out to be with us and to honor the names of our fallen. Steve Hardy, the father of Nate, has just been an amazing ambassador for us. He's been a mentor for me as I put the charity together, and he just continues to be well respected and always participates with us up here at Boston. A couple of key last minute additions to my roster. I'm bringing up both Megan Bourgeois and her two kids. We lost Brian Bourgeois about 2 years ago, was a close friend of mine and a participant in Warrior for Life Fund. And then also Megan Ernst is coming, and her husband, Mike Ernst, died about 18 months ago with her two kids. They're going to be up here with Steve Hardy to drop the puck out on the ice. So it's a real special moment for us. It's really about remembering those we've lost in our formation, and really about just coming together to have a great game, camaraderie, and meaningful relationships with the Boston Bruins in the community.
Frank, how did the relationship with the Warrior for Life Fund come to be and the Bruins alumni come to be?
Well, a mutual friend of Ryan and I, Tony Cabana from Cross Insurance, had been down to Virginia Beach the summer of 2017, and he experienced the therapeutic hockey program that was going on down there with the Navy SEAL, Naval Special Warfare community and their families. And he came back, and when he was heading down the next summer in 2018, he invited me down. And so Bob Beers and I went down to experience it firsthand. And first off, we were welcomed into their community like brothers. We went out on the ice with them and played with their families, their wives, their children. And I felt an automatic bond with this group, but more importantly, how much they cherished hockey and how important hockey was to them for keeping their bonds together between active duty and veterans, to keep their family bonds together, and to keep connected when they were coming off deployments. So when I came back to Boston after that experience, I started spreading the word to the Bruins alumni, started beating the drum and say, hey, look, these guys asked for nothing down there. They could use our help to help elevate their program. So the next year, myself, Bob Sweeney, Tim Sweeney, Ken Hodge Jr., Bruce Crowder, and Dave Jensen went down. We ran some hockey clinics, and they all got immersed in the program. They came back fired up. And in 2019, we decided to rebrand as the Warrior for Life Fund and have a kickoff weekend series with the New York Rangers called Face Off for Heroes, the Alumni Classic, where we announced this new partnership with the folks down in Virginia Beach. We played home and away with the New York Rangers here in Bentley University and down in Madison Square Garden the next day. And the cool thing about it, Adam, was we had 7 Naval Special Warfare personnel embedded on our teams, 5 on the Boston Bruins alumni and 2 on the New York Rangers alumni team. And we gave them an experience they never would have had before. It was wonderful for us to share the ice with them, but boy, did they take away a lifetime experience being on the ice at Madison Square Garden and at Bentley University. And from there, it's really just snowballed, Adam. We've got great support from the Boston Bruins Community Relation, Boston Bruins Foundation. And whenever this game comes around, and this will be the 4th time we've played it, everybody on our roster wants to be part of it. So, because they respect what these guys do for our country, they're the tip of the spear. And if we can help them in any way we can, we're going to do it as an organization.
Yeah, and you could see that when they were players too, right? Because the members of the military are honored during home games at TD Garden. The Bruins do a great job of recognizing, and you can see that the players certainly appreciate that. And Mark, as an ambassador for the Warrior for Life Fund, I know your involvement as an ambassador, but also, I was doing some research and saw that you took part in the adaptive athletes on the ice with the adaptive athletes on the ice for their annual inter-squad game. Why'd you take part in that? What does that mean to you?
Oh, man, it's really become, just a heartwarming moment for me. And, now when I go down there every summer and join the guys down there, we do some gentleman skates down there as well with the military guys. But the next day, we have a little sled game and with those adaptive players. And I'm telling you that it is the most gratifying thing I think I've ever done. Getting on one of those sleds, and not only is it impressive and it's unbelievable what they can do on those things, but just to see them smile or to help them smile in some ways where you can just see they're thinking, overthinking, and they're obviously going through much more difficult thing than I've ever had to go through. So. I just like I said, I love skating with the Navy guys or the military guys, but this sled hockey is really become a focal point for me when I do go down there. I really do look forward to it, and I see some of the same kids every year now, and it's not just a quick, wave hello. I'm getting more hugs now, and it's really been an awesome opportunity for me, and something I obviously will continue.
Yeah, just fantastic. And Ryan, you talked about your roster, and Frank also mentioned that the Warrior for Life Fund team was able to pull out a win. How do you feel about your roster this year going into the game?
Well, we're just happy to be up there and have a family event and to really enjoy the Boston community. And I'm not trying to avoid the question here, but really what it is for us is about meaningful relationships. We always ask our players to bring their families with them. We help support them bringing their families up there. So it's not just about the game. It's more about the weekend and the experience for them that happens. With regard to the lineup, I try and pull active duty guys from the East and West Coast, try to spread the love around as much as I can so we don't have the same players coming every year. But I guarantee you that I have the very best players that I can find across the Naval Special Warfare community to line up with these guys. Last year it was really, really tight. We actually flew some guys in from overseas, and they showed up last minute, and it was a great game last year, I thought. 2-1, the Bruins pulled it out, but we take this game seriously, just like the Bruins are. We're competitors. We like to compete, but really it's a fun game for us to play and just have an opportunity to be treated like a professional athlete, which we would never experience that otherwise.
Finally, Frank, I'll ask you. How do you feel about your roster, and which rookie alumni are you most looking forward to see play?
Oh boy, we're feeling pretty good about our roster. Let's just put that on the record. We have, who am I most interested in? I played against Mark Recchi down in Philadelphia last January, and he still
I remember
has
that
it.
game. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well yeah. That game was probably 20 minutes too long for us. So we were gassed. But, it's interesting. We couldn't find a goaltender to go down and play. They were just all busy. So we reached into the Naval Special Warfare bag and brought up the 2 goaltending tandem Navy SEALs that beat us back in 2021. So we gave them an experience down in Philadelphia they wouldn't normally have. So looking at the roster, boy, I'm really looking forward to see David Krejci out there. As the way he connected with Bergie on the ice, they just know where each other is at. I think it's going to be a thrill for our fans to see this roster come out. I know that tickets when they go on sale on November 11th, and November 9th, they're going to get. It's the 9th, and. Most people don't know this, but the Stanley Cup will be present at the game.
I love all this breaking news, Frank.
Breaking news. We've got it for you, Adam. So right now we're selling sponsorship packages, and that's the best way to get a first row seat for this game. You can go to warriorforlifefund.org or bostonbruinsalumni.com. You'll get linked to the same sponsorship and ticket purchase package there. And we want as many people to come out to this game as possible. It's going to be historic.
It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see it. And that was my last question, where people can go to find information about the game. And Frank, like a true pro, you answered that question without even me having to ask it. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate all 3 of you joining us here on the Hockey Hub podcast. We can't wait for the game on December 7th at Warrior Ice Arena. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that'll wrap things up for the Hockey Hub podcast. For Andy Brickley, I'm Adam Pellerin. We'll see you next time with Judd Surratt. Take care.